Okay, I pushed the button to go live. Good evening, everybody. How are you all? Let's
He's got all the
see.
energy. Hello, everybody. I don't have a bunny here. I mean, I have a bunny over there. But
Nice. Wow. Big load of fluff just went everywhere. Cat. So
keep
fast.
it professional, Michael. Keep it professional. How is everybody?
I'm going to get a parrot. I feel like something should be sat on my shoulder.
You have children, don't you?
Yeah, they wriggle too much. But they don't have claws. They don't have claws. That's fair enough. That is fair enough. Okay, brilliant. Welcome, everybody, to February 1st. Pinch Punch, first of the month.
No returns and rabbits.
Yes. How is everybody? Sound and video good for you guys? I've got all green lights my end, so I'm going to assume it's fine. So
I don't have any green lights. I mean, I can make this one blue.
No, don't make it blue. It looks like you're in an ice cave. So the other day, I've been thinking about where to work in the house, and I've started preparing the garage again. And what I didn't tell you yesterday was I was closing the garage door, and I heard a clunk, and it had stopped, and I thought, okay. So I pressed the go again, and the whole thing fell about 3 foot. I jumped out of my skin. Those are not the words that I would tell people not on stream, but I jumped out of my skin. That was a tremendous bang, and so I've spent some of today trying to get it open because I'm trying to convert the garage into an office space. Ultimately,
that explains some of the exchange you and I had yesterday, which was very confusing.
Wasn't it just?
I had done a video and I was migrainy and I wasn't quite there. And Mikey's like stressed. He's like, "Do you want to play some Grand Theft Auto?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do that." And then he said, "The bits from my desk arrived 2 days early. Bad news is I'm not ready. The garage door went bang." I'm like, "Are you getting a new desk?" "No, I'm editing." I thought you said new desk arrived. "Yes, but it's early." Are you building one?" "No, I'm editing." You're like,
I had gone into literal mode where I'm just answering. Yeah, it can be incredibly difficult to get a sentence out of me occasionally. So good job my teaching.
When Mikey and I are not at cross purposes, we understand each other perfectly. When we're at cross purposes, it makes no sense. Like, we just can't understand each other. We've had so many instances like that where one of us will say, "We're doing something." I'm like, "No, we're hundreds of miles apart."
My brain's all fuzzy. I do like 20 million things a day. It's all fun. Yep. Speaking of which, there's going to be dropping throughout the evening and tomorrow. Take cover! The first section of the new Blender course. I paused the upload at the moment, otherwise streaming would be impossible. But I've just been waiting for videos to upload for most of the day, which has been a lot of fun. So that is where the thumbnail for today's video comes from. It's a candidate for the course cover. For its cover art. So what do you guys think about that? It's just a little low.
Well, do you want to throw it on screen because they can't see it right now? They're looking at us.
That's very true. Let's see if I can do that. I'm well prepared. I've actually got some stuff open to show as well, but let's go here, and open that.
Goodness, I'm going grey. Old. Did old happen?
Come on, open up. Windows is being funny. Right, okay, so that's opened up. So this is going to be, or is a candidate for the course title. There's sort of like the splash screen, and there are some logos and things like that to put on there at the moment, but it's a nice simple low poly scene.
I really like the palette on it, the colours.
Me too. Completely accidental. I seem to have some sort of artistic streak in me, which is, I don't know where it comes from. Perhaps I should teach some art courses.
I remember, Obo, when Ben Tristan used to try and reassure me about my age, when my various mobility issues all started kicking in at the same time, and I started telling him I feel old, and he would say, "You're as old as you feel." Like, that's the problem I'm having. That doesn't make me feel... I'm 129.
Oh dear. Let's bring us back. So what do you guys...
Nice echo.
Yes, as I switched scene, my microphone and my microphone and my microphone and my microphone and my
Don't
microphone
do that.
was engaged. I've had lots of fun when I'm trying to configure this setup.
Mm.
Occasionally, like I'll test the audio, but because it's coming through the system that's recording the audio, it starts a feedback loop, and I can't often work out if it's something Jan's actually saying. I'll be like, say something, and you'll say something, and then it'll come back around again. And I'm like, are you trolling me?
Yep.
Not in this case.
Although I don't tend to do the trolling of the two of us.
Yeah, that's fair.
Although we did have a good timing in Grad Troll Auto, but let's talk about work first. So the first 3 sections of Blender, you say?
You troll. Yeah, the first section. So the whole point behind the first section, it's going to be a free section for everybody, in case those who haven't caught up or are aware of the Catsaphone that Jan is playing. So anybody who's unaware of it, it's going to be an introductory course. I'm not quite sure how long it is at the moment, but it's going to be free on our site. I'm going to pop it up on YouTube as well, and it'll be the first section of the Blender Creative Series as well. All of the individual courses, ones that our guest instructors, Paul and Erin, are going to be on, they're going to be launched not only as their own individual course, so if you just want to learn about something real specific, that'll be there, but also the bundle itself, the Blender Creative Series, will just include all of these courses bundled together as one as it goes along.
Some nice feedback there from Darren.
I like it. It gives a little space to put texture or the eye. I'm not sure about white.
No,
spots.
in an Aberdeen accent. Come on.
No. Maybe on a different stream on another time.
After some drinks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm about to finish section 3 of Canopy Cars, which is a much smaller, less populous subject. That's not the word. It's going well. I have rediscovered something, and Mike and I were just talking about this, the joys of recording while tired. And you record it, and you're really proud of it, and then the next day you got to edit it. It's like, what? None of this makes any sense.
So during my student days, I'm an avid composer of music, and during my student days, I was doing it all the time. And you come home late, you might have been out to the pub or the club or wherever, and you start making some music, and during the evening you think, wow, this stuff is amazing. You listen to it back later on, and it had some good ideas in there, but it definitely wasn't
amazing. Did it need the kazoo solo?
Yeah, things like that. There we go. If I did Aberdeen, it just wouldn't be faithful.
That's fair. That's fair. I apologise, Des. Speaking as somebody whose Scottish accent is awful. Canopy Cars is coming along nicely. Blender seems to be coming along nicely. Yep. I'm looking forward to seeing what the students can make with both of those. And if they want, they can even use the Blender course to make assets for their own racer.
Oh, that'd be exciting.
Would be.
Yeah, really liking people sharing their work as well over on the Discord. The latest stuff, someone's following along, I can't remember their name, but they were sharing some work earlier over on the Discord. I'll go and pull it up actually, which hopefully won't erase your face. I've got away with words, haven't I?
My face. I said it was old, not awful.
So hopefully I won't have an echo at this point in time. But yeah, the someone's following along for Gotta Getaway, and they're making a 1980s, 70s style. And these cars are just awesome. I can't wait to see how the game ends up progressing and coming together. These are absolutely fantastic. I want to play this. And when I saw it, I was thinking Blues Brothers. If there was a way of making like a 20 car pile up, it would be absolutely fantastic and a ton of fun. So yeah, those there, absolutely wonderful. And if you're squirreling away your work, do share it, because I love seeing it. And even, I don't always react to everything. So much stuff comes in, but I'm always there. I'm always watching.
Watching you. I was going through the Canopy Cars stuff, and I was tired, and I need to redo it. And Mikey convinced me that I need to be using Git. I need to be uploading every lecture to Git repo. So if something goes wrong, people can look at the Git, compare what's happening. And the problem is I don't know how to use Git very well. So I thought, well, I'll just re-record this video. So I'm just going to go back to a previous state in the Git. So I'll just rebase and wait, what did I just do? I've just lost 3 lectures. I have to do them again. So that was a fun day.
It does take a while to get your head around Git repos, and some funny stuff can happen. Like, you've got a detached head. I'm like, what? But if you don't know what it means, it can be quite paralyzing. But I really love the way that with code, obviously you can see exactly what the changes are. But with art assets, it enables you to sort of like pause in time, and then you can branch and try out some stuff. And of course, you can try this yourself by just, renaming your file and going off on another area. But it just keeps your file system tidy. You've only got one working file, and then you can just change it to another version very quickly. So I do like that mechanic. Otherwise, my hard drive would just be full of Blender files.
It's fair.
Like it's not already.
I need a new hard drive. Mine's full of videos and 2 video games. Like,
is this where I find my NAS gets full up of your spare stuff? You're like, I'll just upload this to Mike.
I got all this stuff from 10 years ago. I'll just put it on Mike's machine. No, because my internet's not stable enough. It'll take weeks.
That's true, actually.
We had a fun time on. Should we talk about games now?
Yeah, we could. A detached head can really ruin your day in more ways than one.
It can. The other thing is a lot of server stuff that I'm learning that I apply to a commercial project, and it's getting away from me making games. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Gotta Get Away was never designed as a networking course. I mean, we thought about it, but like we'd have to get the specialist in. And networking isn't really a course, it's a degree.
There's so much to cater for, and it depends on the type of game as well. So things that you'd learn. Gotta Get Away's got quite a fast-paced game. Mag Racer even more so. So you end up with these issues with latency and rubber banding that with a slower paced game, if you're making a real-time strategy, you could probably quite easily just use a different type of networking in order to get there. But when you need rapid response,
and also, so you know that thing where you're coding and you get spaghetti code. You like pass a variable over here, and then it turns into something else that goes over here, and like 4 or 5 different scripts and 12 or 13 different functions are all interrelated to one thing, and you can't actually debug it. You don't know what's going on. You have to rewrite the whole thing. Networking is a very similar thing in that you need to have a very clear idea of what part of your network is authoritative for what part of your network is responsible for what. A great example for this is when we put car horns and sirens in the game.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a major mechanic. When I press the beep horn button, what happens on the network?
It's a very good question. And there are other things you can do, and you really start going down the rabbit hole of networking. Whether it's a horn or a shot that's being fired from the gun in a game, you really have to be aware and cognizant of the fact that, okay, a player has, let's say, fired a weapon. There's a muzzle flash, there's a sound, but the muzzle flash and sound can just play locally. You don't need to play it back on the client machine, which is good. But they send that data to a server, and then everybody on the server needs to show the flash in the right location at the right time, may have to adjust the sound as well. And of course, then it sends all the data to the other players, all the other clients that are connected to the server. But of course, you don't need to send that data back to the person who fired the weapon. Otherwise, they would then see their weapon stuttering, and it would ruin the feel of the game. So there's loads of nuances when it comes to programming, specifically when latency is involved.
Latency, authority, there's all kinds of things you need to really watch in. Well, kind of. I was just reading Daz's comment. GD Quest do a little bit of networking stuff, but they don't do like an online game. They say, here's how you would do a lobby. Here's how you would send this information. And again, it's because it's a really big topic. Like, briefly, we talked about making Mag Racer an online multiplayer game. And what we realized when I looked at the code and how to do this was it was too fast. For the kind of networking we're doing in Gotta Get Away, it simply wouldn't work.
Yeah.
We'd have to put some major prediction in, all the rest of it, because when I tried making it every frame, the host sends position information to all clients, you couldn't steer.
Yeah.
because when you're going at 400 kilometers per hour, that half-second delay is huge.
Absolutely, yeah. I play occasionally Need for Speed Heat. I've been playing it for like on and off for the last month or so, and so that's a racing game for those who don't know the Need for Speed franchise. And we play with people over in Canada, or, around the world basically. And then you end up, if there's slight latency, people start rubber banding. I was following Melicon. If he's actually in the chat, he might be listening or still working, don't know. But I was right behind his tail, and on his screen on my screen he passed through a van in front, and because I was tailing him, I just went straight into the van, because obviously I'm presuming at this point the van was in a different position on his screen, and so he had avoided it. On my screen, he went through it, and I didn't lose the race, but it's a real thing, and even AAA big studios struggle with implementing these when the latency gets high enough. 200 milliseconds is nearly a quarter of a second. 250 is, but
this is actually what I was going to talk about when we're going to start discussing Grand Theft Auto, because we played some GTA Online again this week. And the new content is a lot of fun, and it's very interesting. And new cars and a really good new heist that you could solo, which is amazing, because it means you don't have to. Well, the toxicity in that game is a problem, but I was having network problems. So first, Mikey and I couldn't get in the same lobby. It took 3 attempts. Finally, we get in the same lobby, and I let Mikey drive the new helicopter, new stealth helicopter.
Lots of fun.
But on my screen, we're crashing into the building, so I'm jumping out of the window. On Mikey's screen, I'm sitting next to him, and then suddenly I vanish. And then all of a sudden, I'm back in the helicopter, but now I don't have a parachute. So the next time I jump out, I die. Because the parachute is handled locally, but the position is handled on the server with prediction. Or we'll be driving on a high-speed chase, and then suddenly Mikey will just park on a wall. And then half a second
occasionally
later,
that
I'm
happens.
at the other end of the city, and I'm still in the car. So then we tried to get into a heist. I'm like, okay, for some reason on this one, we have to sit in a plane and fly all the way across the map before we can start the thing. So Mikey, you can fly. I'm not doing it. You fly. He's like, okay, cool. Can I crash into this building? No, I'm rubber banding too much. You can't. So we fly all the way across. And then Mikey vanishes from the plane, and I start diving into the sea. And I can't just scooch over. It's Grand Theft Auto. There's no scooch over button. And then I freeze with the nose of the plane like 3 feet above the ocean. And I'm just sitting there.
Stuck.
Like, Mikey, are you in a cutscene? Like, yeah, you're right here with me. Like, I'm not. I'm not. So Mikey was in there, which made him the host of that heist. But Mikey didn't have permission to do the heist. Permission problems. This is where I'm going, right? The whole networking thing. Which meant, because I wasn't there and Mikey was the host, he would have to invite me. The game says, do you have permission to be here? No. Back to the mainland. So I get dropped into the ocean, and Mikey gets teleported to a thing. I'm like, I can't.
Yeah. I appeared on the island, and I was like, but I appear to be armed. The whole premise of this mission was that your weapons are taken from you. I'm like, this is going to be a lot easier if I've got weapons. But then I also realised the island's empty. What's going on here? So yeah, it's interesting how, because it was all down because I was driving the plane. Yeah, when we hit that checkpoint, it did some sort of permission check in order to check that I'm valid to take control. Like if there's a mission to capture a particular vehicle, like an ambulance or something like that, you have to deliver it to your base if you're the CEO. So it's interesting that these problems exist even with
especially something like Grand Theft Auto. And I saw a bunch of people online recently talking about, why doesn't another company just step in and do it, like an indie company? And you have to realize GTA Online is a 13-year-old game with a 95 gig install, I think. Massive amounts of content. About a team of about 1,000 people have worked over on that game over the time. It rakes in something like $600 million a year on a slow year, 800 million last year. So whenever they add major new content, they're going back over ancient code written by people who probably aren't in the company anymore. So these bugs are going to happen. So when you get things like, it never occurred to us the person flying the plane wouldn't be the host of the mission. leading
Heist.
to a massive authority failure, which just dumps everyone back in the island. It feels really unprofessional, but it's not unprofessional. It's just this is a huge piece of code.
Definitely, and I feel both humble and enlightened to actually be able to understand what's going on behind the scenes, because otherwise I would genuinely just be sat there in frustration going to Jan, oh, this is rubbish, we just can't play. But once you start to understand some of the rules behind what's going on, I mean, perhaps it assumes that we're both at the same level in the game, and we're not. I don't have a huge deal of time. That I've played GTA Online. I've played a lot of games online, but I often find myself at several levels below, where other people who have played the game for more. Take what was the pirate version of Ark called? Atlas.
Atlas.
So we're starting a game of Atlas. You're already at level 21, 22, something like that. And then this creature appears on the island, and Jan's like, don't shoot the snake.
Not talking about this.
Don't shoot the snake, Mike. It will kill you in one hit.
Alpha snake, I want to point out. Not just a snake, an alpha snake, an end boss.
And Jan's just given me loads of guns to fire. It was a simple one. So I just quickly go through them all, fire loads of bullets into the snake and kill it, and my level goes, I think I was level 8, it goes level 9. I went, oh, I leveled up, quite excitedly. Oh, I've leveled up again. Oh, there's a couple of levels, and this keeps going, and I think I got up to about, another level. I think they were getting bored of it, and I was at level 25, 26, something like that.
Yes, Mikey out-leveled me because I gave him some guns.
But that's quite unbalanced, the fact that I can level up so much by killing one thing in the game. It makes no logical sense at all. There's no skill base behind that. But it's just the way it's a systemic problem, essentially. It's there written into the code that if you kill something of this rating, you get
I mean, you and I
XP.
have talked about the problem with putting levels in games.
Yes.
And I'm still not convinced it's always the way to go. Daz was talking about how back when GTA 2 and 3 came out, him and a lad from work thought how this could be online. When GTA Online is good, it's very good. We actually went into a public session. He's like, well, we can't do any of the heists right now. Like, we tried this one. It keeps bugging out. We get killed when we get to into the front door. We have to reload the entire thing, drive all the way across the map and get killed at the front door. Drive all the way across the map and get killed at the front door. Let's do something else.
Yeah.
So, like, we'll just drive around and see if we can make some money on these business missions. We actually did pretty well. And then I let Mikey, like, we have to deliver this car. You take my bulletproof, bomb-proof car, drive around, and let's see if they'll follow you instead of me, so I could deliver the car and make us some money. And they did. They all followed Mikey. And then Mikey went, wait, my car is bomb-proof. Yeah. So he's sitting in front of a guy with a rocket launcher. Mikey, would you like to tell the story?
So I think it was the car that replica of the Bond car, the one that can turn into a submarine, and he's trolling a couple of people. I can see here he's going around, he's firing rockets at people. So I pull up alongside him, and then there's an explosion. He's trying to fire, and it just hits the hill in front of me. And then I chase him around for a bit, and in the end, I end up parking bumper to bumper, and he fires another rocket, which duly explodes on my vehicle, taking him out. And I'm like, this is so cool. It's an anti-troll device.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. We did briefly talk about, should we stream this? But the problem is it's Grand Theft Auto. And it's Grand Theft Auto Online, which can be a very toxic place. And we don't really want to be streaming.
I would have to blur out the chat for a start. That can be a very toxic place. But it's when we stream, we want it to always be family friendly, basically. So I wouldn't actually want to stream anything with swearing in it. I want to make sure that if we've got students on our channel that are younger, we want to make sure it's kept clean. The same rules for the Discord as well.
There's also, I don't think GTA 5 and GTA Online is a suitable place for a minor. Like, I'm not somebody who's extremely, like, stilted and conservative in my views, but there's some stuff in there that actually maybe wait until you're in your late teens before you touch this stuff. Like, if you're going to run a methamphetamine business, maybe be a grown-up and know what the implications there are, right? But there's a big influx over the last year of 10 to 15-year-olds in that game. And 10 to 15-year-olds, when they're trolling or angry, don't always have great impulse control and will often type very, very inflammatory, racist, derogatory things that we really don't want on our stream channel.
No. So those won't come. But I did actually video it, so I
Nice.
may put up a few clips of me doing saving the day and me jumping out of a. I jumped from the tall building. We were base jumping just at the very end of the mission. I'm like, Jan, this is a staggered building. I didn't open my parachute very quickly, so I'm now about 50 foot down with myself embedded in the concrete.
Yeah, he just jumped off and landed on a ledge. So yeah, it's a fun multiplayer game. I do at some point want to see what Red Dead Online with a friend is like. Red Dead Online with strangers is weird. But another problem with GTA is they've kind of created a very toxic world. And now they're kind of powerless to deal with the fact that the community reflects that.
Yeah. I mean, it is a crime syndicate world. That's the whole point of the game.
Red Dead Online doesn't have that kind of F the world, laugh at everyone, punch down kind of humor.
Yeah.
Right? It's very,
definitely.
very touching, and it can deal with some very adult themes, and it's shot like a movie. And there are moments in Red Dead 2 that just felt beautifully framed. There is a moment where, and I don't want to spoil it, but your entire outlaw gang has been pinned down by the Pinkerton agency with a Maxim gun, a Gatling gun, and they're loading up to fire through the door. And then your character you sneak around to a side building. And then someone throws you a repeater. Your character shouts, "These men are beginning to irritate." And you kick through it. And the entire thing is framed in slow motion like a movie. And that just sticks with you. GTA never did that. GTA started life as a violent parody. And so it rewards that feeling of very, very trolley behavior.
Yeah, the FIB torture mission. That was a bit. Yeah, it was a bit too.
And mine too. Mine too. That was the one that made me think, I don't know that I ever want to play a Rockstar game again. Because I couldn't skip it. It wasn't a cutscene. I was being told to actively partake in that torture. Yeah. And like I had to do the actions, like with
and for a big company like Rockstar, it would have been possible that if you decided to be a pacifist and not do it, they just kicked you out the building, and that happened anyway without you being there. There's
fade to black, or let me press escape. Like there's no emotional reason why I have to take part in that and laugh about it because it's supposed to be funny. It's not funny.
Yeah,
it just isn't. It's tone deaf. But Red Dead Online deals with Red Dead Online 2 deals with death and redemption and fate and anger and rage and family. And I mean, there's some dark stuff in that game. I mean, the clan is around the place because they're very powerful at that point. But it never feels like it's not taking it seriously. So I'd be curious to see if the online version of that game is different from GTA's community.
And the sort of missions you have to do. Yeah,
it might not be. It might be just the same. But I just mean the behavior of the people in the world.
Well, I think a lot of I've said this before about GTA. A lot of the game feels very unbalanced. I believe it's the Oppressor, which is a flying motorbike with what seems like with unlimited rockets. I mean, it can defeat a tank.
Although you and I found counters to that.
Yep, we have now.
Yep.
But one of the things that I said towards the end as we were playing is, if I wasn't playing with you, Jan, and I didn't have access to these armoured cars, I've got the armoured Kuruma, but that's still vulnerable to rockets, I believe.
Actually, your favourite pistol would be perfect against an oppressor. I was thinking about this. Every time we do a mission, Mikey will start firing flares.
Because I know how to control.
Yep. The control system in GTA is appalling. Like every single menu uses different control criteria. And every single time I try and drive the submarine, I forget which button does what, because you have to do one set of buttons to get in the chair, another set of buttons. Anyway, the flares can divert homing missiles. So if you fire the flare at him as he's firing, the missile will hit him.
Oh, nice. So you could troll someone trolling by just firing
I mean, you
flares at them.
have to be good, but in principle, I believe it should be
That's
possible.
that's interesting. And don't get us wrong, by the way, we obviously enjoy GTA Online. I know we're tearing it apart at
Very
the
impressive
moment,
game.
but we're tearing it apart in hopefully what's coming across as a critical way of how, if you're designing a game, how things can easily get out of hand, not only socially, but with control systems. I mean, it. One of the questions I had for Jan is, why can't I just eat my food? Why do I have to click twice on a menu?
M,
Why, when I use the
down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, enter, down arrow, enter, 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 dead. Like,
it, I thought you were giving me the secret code. Do you remember on consoles when there was no keyboard
Army
inputs?
code.
Yeah, up, down, left, right, A, B, A. It's like, what?
oh, one, two.
But yeah, control systems are supposed to be somewhat intuitive. I mean,
But this is the problem, right? It's a huge game with a lot of different things. Like a helicopter doesn't behave like a car. You can't have drive the same way.
no.
But then when someone adds in a whole new heist, they're going to use the control system they think works, but it's not consistent with previous heists.
Or when they just added features. I think that's probably the biggest one, that the game has grown bigger than they ever imagined it would. As you alluded to earlier, perhaps the original developers are no longer on the project, or someone who made those original design decisions aren't around. But redesigning the control interface is a tall order. You're going to
But they're getting players to relearn it. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, you would alienate an entire player
But
base.
one that annoys me is swimming. So you're doing the stealth mission. You want to get in your boat, right? You jump into the water. You're under the water. Okay, under the water. W is swim down. S is well, aim down. S is aim up. Shift is go forward. Okay, fine. Do all that. Get to the surface. Now W is swim forward. S is swim backwards. Space is go under the water. Space is also grab onto a surface and pull onto the boat. But if you're at the wrong end of the boat, you don't pull onto the boat, you swim underneath it while people are shooting at you. And then you do it again. And then you do it again. And then you pull yourself up on the boat. And then your character, because you're holding space, jumps. He jumps over the boat and into the water. And then he swims under the boat. And then you're dead.
So we were finishing off one of these missions where we had to climb to the roof and you had to use a ladder. And I'm watching Jan run around the base of this ladder going, latch onto the ladder, latch onto it. And you are getting more and more irate. I'm like, it's like this, Jan. And I run through the ladder and go to the wall.
There's one mission. I'm on a rooftop. I have to get down the building where people are shooting at me. I clear a space. There's a ladder. I walk to the ladder. My character just falls off the building and dies. So it reloads. I do it again. I'm like, what's wrong with this ladder?
Perfect.
I walk to the ladder. No. I walk to the ladder. No. I end up having to aim at the ladder and sneak towards it.
You gotta watch out for those ladders. They're sneaky.
And it's all happening because the game is so big. The levels are huge, the code base is huge, the scope is huge, that actually getting everything consistent like that is a QA nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, just little things like making sure the collisions on all of your models are accurate, and that when someone placed it in the scene, that it was the right model and not with the wrong collision attached.
We did a mission where we had to clear a bunch of smugglers away from a plane, so I had a sniper rifle, and I start shooting above and below the wing. And the bullets get stopped by the invisible air below the wing. Like,
this is the plane that we have to steal in a moment. I'm like, Jan, you're hitting the plane. Ching, ching. And I'm like, no, it's going to blow up.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that swimming underwater in Grand Theft Auto uses the same controls as a helicopter.
Yes, I pick up now if I'm underwater, I pick up my controller again. So the funny thing about Grand Theft Auto is I cannot do any aiming. Well, I can, but I really don't like doing any aiming without the mouse. I love having the mouse control, and I can just go around and go dup, 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 and hit everybody in the head or whatever. But as soon as I grab into a car, I've got this in my hand. And occasionally, going in and out of car, or when we're in a mission for too long down there, Jan's like, let's go! And I'm like, I press, F on the keyboard. I jumped into the car, I pick up the controller. He's like, come on, Mike. And I'm like, my controller's starting. Let's just pretend it's like in those films when the engine's going.
I had a great moment right at the beginning where came to pick you up in my brand new purple stealth helicopter with a clown face on the side. And Mikey's like, oh, like, would you like to fly it, Mikey? Yeah. So he starts flying it. I start rubber banding. And I don't know I'm rubber banding until Mikey's like talking on Discord about how great this is. This is awesome. I love this. This would be great. Like, why are you aiming for the floor? Michael, pull up. Pull up. Mikey's like, what are you talking about? I'm up in the air. At which point, Michael disappears on my screen and is replaced by an NPC. The helicopter grinds the nose along the road like this. I jump out. At which point, the NPC that used to be Michael flies my helicopter away, which kicks Michael out of the helicopter. So we're just sitting there watching my helicopter fly across the ocean.
Now, I didn't see that because I got kicked from your session. So what I saw was me coming down and I pulled up just, maybe 4 feet from the ground. And I was like, this is really impressive. And then you climb out, I climb out, you disappear, and the helicopter just goes up in the air and crashes behind me. And I'm like, I'm very sorry. I've broken your helicopter. Why did you kick me out of it?
That's reminding me of the autopilot from Naked Gun, which is great. But yeah, I'm kind of fascinated by both Red Dead Online and GTA Online. Both what they do well and what they don't do well. And I don't think it's fair to criticize like bugs and so forth on a game that huge if you haven't worked on one. I do think their QA needs to be better.
Yeah.
But I think a big thing that interests me with GTA Online is they've created a very trolly single player experience for decades. I mean, I remember when the first Grand Theft Auto came out when I was in college, and it was the trolliest, most toxic game in the world. And at that time in my life, I thought that was amazing. The problem is, it's very much like the Praxis Kit problem in Deus Ex. You build that, you reward players that behavior, and then you give them an online play space, and they just carry on playing like that, ruining other people's fun. Not everyone. There's some lovely things that go on. There was a car meet that happened in our session, which admittedly someone turned up and blew up. It wasn't us. We used that as an opportunity to go do some stuff while everyone was distracted.
Yes, we hopped in the stealth helicopter, made it stealthy, and just disappeared to the other end of the map.
Let's go over here while they're busy.
We flew over the car meet, actually, and my first comment was, if I wanted to at this point, I'm in a stealth helicopter, I could unstealth, fire off 5 rockets, stealth myself, and fly off. And that seems unbalanced, shall we say?
You've got that impulse, right? And everyone's got that impulse. And if you're still an adolescent, you probably don't have that 3-second gap between having the impulse and acting on it.
Yeah.
Which develops pretty late in adult development, like around the age of 20, 25. The problem is, when that happens, it's just irritating. And yes, you could spend the entire evening just chasing someone down and making their life miserable, but why? Like, just do something else.
Yeah.
I am kind of fascinated by that way in which the story and the mechanics probably inadvertently lead to a certain type of behavior. Not everyone. A lot of people are very friendly, and most people leave each other alone. And we managed to get a whole bunch of, business missions done without anyone. Well, that's not true. Someone did chase us with a jet. They just fired on the wrong car.
Yeah, they fired at me, which was brilliant. Yeah, and then they crashed their jet in front of me, and then, yeah, that was a lot of fun, that one.
I am also surprised because I wander around that game in a suit and clown makeup. I'm surprised more people don't think I'm trolling. I tend not to be.
You did turn up. You said, Mike, do you like my car? It's the Joker's car.
That was a good car.
I would try and do a Batman impression, but I'd just end up coughing.
Swear at me. I changed it a bit.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, so we've been quite busy. I'm going to bring it back to core stuff for a moment. So, as I was saying earlier, the beginning section is all about getting people up and running. It is genuinely for absolute beginners. I'd be interested if any of you fancy going through it who are more experienced, and if there's any, I didn't know that moments. Because I've had that before when I've done absolute beginner stuff, because you tend to have these little bits of deep dives into something like snapping, or I haven't even got to extruding yet. It is for absolute beginners. Hopefully that comes across quite well. I'm going to set up a playlist called Absolute Beginners. It's just getting started in Blender, basically. But by the end of it, I'd really like to show. Let me open up the sort of thing that you're able to create without even going into edit mode. So if anybody's familiar with or not familiar with Blender, edit mode is where you can start making some really nice edits, and you can change your world around and make it look pretty awesome. But you can also just add stuff into a scene, and it also looks pretty awesome. And when I say stuff, I mean primitives. So your cube, those basic geometric objects, just add to the scene. It looks pretty awesome. I need to just adjust my scene. I've obviously played with it and turned off all of the lights, and that wouldn't be a great thing to show you guys. So bear with me just a moment. I'm loading it up at the moment.
While you're doing that, to answer your question, Des, I mean, I haven't been following what Mikey's been doing in his Blender course at the moment because I'm doing the Canopy course, the Canopy Cars course. But there is some stuff we discovered while we were playing around with Mag Racer that I think would be a lot of fun, especially shape keys.
Yes.
Because we discovered that Godot can access shape keys. So if Michael makes, for instance, a building or a window that's shattered as one shape and whole as the other, I can actually animate between them.
That is pretty awesome. And that would be one way of controlling, let's say if you had a car and you crashed it, you could actually deform it based upon where the shape key actually hit on the car. And I wonder if that's something like GTA, how they actually managed to deform their cars. Because there are so many different ways that you could do it.
Yeah, you can control it in Godot is it in the animation slider or was it a separate thing? I can't remember. But Michael was playing with it for Mag Racer because it's like, should we make it? Because we were talking about maybe we'll make a deformable damage model. And it turns out you can actually control shape keys in Godot.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm still waiting for Blender to load up.
You should.
I have a power. Am I in local view or something like that? Yes, I am. There we go. It was actually working. So let's switch over and show you guys the end of the section, what we will be basically aiming towards. So everything you can see in front of you here, I've made it so that you can see outlines and things like that, but everything you can see in front of you here is just a primitive. I mean, the church or cathedral behind, I mean, that is very obviously just capped on top of one another. These were fun, these slope surfaces. It's just a cube on its side intersecting. Yes, there isn't a great topology going on, but that's not the point of this. The whole point is to just get people something. Not all this, you need to make it in a very specific way. We learn about that later on. It's just a sandbox, something to play with. This mech down here I absolutely love. It's just boxes and cylinders, and I went a bit too detailed at the front here. But I've left it like this so you can see that they're just stretched out cylinders. And it's amazing the shapes and the forms you can create when you just have basic objects. Sometimes it takes constraints like that to be creative. And there's a very precise one. Like this laptop, this is just cubes. There's nothing special about that. And that I would be absolutely fine with that as a quick in a game or something along those lines. Boom, you rendered it out, and all that happened here is I just went through methodically putting lots of duplication, but I just moved a flattened cube across and across and across, and there's a cylinder for the hinge there. So lots and lots of stuff to one. Again, bridge here, you just repeat the same thing over and over, and the planet is obviously a torus and a sphere.
And just to answer that copyright thing, the concept of a rideable, human-controlled, weaponized robot is not copyrightable. Specific names and designs, yes. You can't call them mechs, or you can't call them what a Battletech.
Can't call them mech warriors, I believe.
Can't call them mech warriors. Thank you.
Yeah.
You can't call them mech warriors. You can't copy any of the houses in Mech Warrior. You can't copy any of Battletech's designs. But the concept of stompy robot is allowed.
Yes, by all means. So yeah, The you do have to watch out for trademarks and things like that. One of the issues that I was talking to both Paul and Erin about, they were like, "I've got this," especially Paul, because he wanted to do an anime character for the 2D grease pencil section, and I was like, "Oh, what's it from?" And he said the show it's from. I don't know anything about anime, but I was like, "Oh, it sounds really cool. It looks really cool. Do we have permission to use their likeness?" If not, I'm afraid the answer's no. I mean, you can risk these sort of things on your YouTube channel. You can go ahead and make a TIE fighter or a Star Destroyer. But the moment that Disney doesn't like you anymore, I believe it's Disney who owns them now, but at the moment that they don't like you anymore, that's it. You can get shut down. And why take on someone as large as Disney? You can make certainly make like a TIE fighter esque thing that looks like a spaceship with wings popping up on the
I want
side.
to clarify. This is not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer.
Yes.
Legally, you can't make TIE fighters and put them on your YouTube channel because they can do a copyright strike on you. It's just that LucasArts don't always do that. We've got Payton rules. Yep, Payton rules. Sorry, my eyes aren't working very well. Saying Stoppy Stoppy Robot is my favorite EDM artist. I'm really hoping it is actually an EDM artist. I don't follow EDM, so I don't know. I'm really hoping it is.
I'm just moving that into...
Question from Gad. Will you be doing course content on including texturing in the asset creation import workflow? Same for creating using basic animations like a door opening.
Yes. Okay, so one thing that I will bring up here real quick. It'll take me a few moments to log in, etc. So give me those few moments. It's just the course topics that we'll be covering. And I'm on the wrong board. I'm just opening up a Trello board, and then I'll move across and show the screens. But yes, in short, yes, we'll be covering all of those things. I'm going to show you guys in a moment the actual sort of Trello, which is a Kanban board for the overall idea of what we want to be in the course. Nothing on here is absolutely concrete, so the sections may vary by name. The content essentially will be there. So let me just turn on my main screen. Here we go. Obviously, there are lecture ideas down here, and I've started filling out some of the other things. I've moved over to Asana for managing this. But just to show you guys along the top here, we've got getting started. Let's move that out of the way. We're going to do some block modeling, so going into edit mode, making some very basic objects, and building up your skills, basically low poly modeling at this point. And we'll be talking about curves because they are really interesting. They're a form of generative, I can never say the word, procedural modeling, parametric modeling, because you can change the mesh after the fact very easily because it's generated on top of a curve. We'll be talking about sculpting, and to your point there about texturing, we'll be talking about both materials and texturing. Texturing is just part of the material process. Lighting, incredibly important. You can get two different renders, pop them side by side with different lighting, and they can change the whole mood and feel of a subject or a whole scene. Rendering. Now, rendering is something we're going to do lots throughout the course. But specifically with rendering, we'll be talking about your different render layers, the more technical sides of rendering. Going on to opening a door and things like that, well, that's where rigging comes in, and animation, because a door opening and closing, you can actually just animate it. You can also do that in code as well. It's entirely up to you how you're putting your game together. A very much overlooked part of Blender is compositing. This is where you could do it inside Blender, you could do it outside of Blender in something like Photoshop or Affinity Photo or GIMP, or the list of programs is endless. But where you take your final bit of artwork and you might put some mist on it, so you've saved all of that time where you could have rendered out a scene with mist, but it would have ended up being a volumetric scene, which takes tons of time, or just tweaking the values, so you end up with shifting the color balance more towards a cooler or a warmer image. So we'll be going through Blender's own built-in compositing, and we'll be talking about using it for motion graphics, I hope. Video editing, we need to export our animations anyway. Simulations, well, simulations kind of covers particles as well. And there's some big stuff coming for Blender 2.9, everything nodes that they're pushing forward for at the moment. I think when Blender 2.9 releases, they've reworked the entire particle system, which is absolutely brilliant. The grease pencil, that's going to be handled by Paul. I'll post Paul and Erin's channels in a moment. Hard surface modeling, not sure if we're going to incorporate that in just the general modeling area. Shaders specifically procedural shaders. Erin's handling that area. And then Python, a much overlooked area of Blender. Being able to code in a game engine is awesome. Being able to code as an artist is pretty amazing. So there was a time when Jan and I were putting together assets, and we needed to make quick tweaks, but those quick tweaks applied across multiple objects in the scene. And Jan's like, "Oh, could you just do this?" And those are the last words any artist, any designer ever wants to hear is, "Can you just do?" Because often, and Jan does know, I'm just extrapolating. Or,
oh no, I mean,
it's one of those things.
I wasn't there when the model's made. I don't know which changes are trivial.
Yes, exactly. And the same's true of the code base. Oh, can you just have it control like this instead? Anyway, so being able to code means that you can write a script and control Blender with code. And the great thing about that is when I think it was about 50 models I needed to export in the right position in the scene, with the right orientation, with their collisions automatically applied. Of course, if you've altered a model, you need to alter its collision as well. And you could do all that with scripting. So we'll have a deep dive into all of these areas. And basically the whole idea of the course, or the bundle as a whole, is to make sure that everybody's up to a good intermediate standard. Basically, at the end of it, you'll be an excellent generalist. You'll be able to touch every component within Blender and understand what it does. And I think I'm going to say almost everything. I'm not going to say everything, but almost everything Blender can do, I'm going to attempt to cover in the course itself.
I'm going to interrupt right there because there was something that I added to the Canopy Games, the Canopy Cars course yesterday that I hadn't intended to put in there, but I thought it was a good idea. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
Okay, I should share my screen. Are you set up for me sharing my screen?
I can. What I can do is just show my screen, basically. There we go.
Okay. So you seeing my screen?
We are indeed.
Okay, so here we have the world so far. We've got the one demo car. We've got the map made. And one of the things we wanted to do was we want to have this feeling of a big open world, but actually have it quite confined. So we want the feeling of space, but we can't have the player going over the water because the water is a flat surface. So we've got these walls that fade in when you get too close, just to warn you they're there. Right now they're just bright red, might make them prettier. Originally, they were square walls, but I realized that I'd figured something out in Mag Racer that could be reused here. The boundary wall is a path with a polygon set to follow it. And It's just a really neat little way of just saying, I've tweaked the track. How do I want this to look? Like, I might want this slightly further away from the road. So I'm going to select the path, go to top view, make sure I'm actually looking at the right place. Where'd you go? Hey, you know what? Let's move the grid out of the way. It vanished. Why did it put me over there? Fine.
Whilst you're figuring... there you go, you're just beneath it, aren't you? So, whilst Jan's just figuring that out, this is a great example of the curves that I was talking about a moment ago with when it comes to modelling, how they can be used to alter, as Jan's doing here, a bit of geometry. And it's exactly the same in Blender. And it's an incredibly powerful a tool to be able to quickly change things. Yes, in Blender, for instance, you could hop into edit mode and start pulling vertices around, but if you can control a whole thing by just clicking and dragging a few handles, that is far quicker. And it's just about understanding that different workflows have different impacts on the speed at which you're able to create assets, or in this case, borders around your world.
Yep. So if I jump into that, I have to switch to my other thing. 1 second. And we already have this lovely little world you can drive around. You can see all over there, but if you get too close to the edge, it'll just say, no, you are not a boat. You can't go this way. It has collision all set up. And then you
Oh,
could
bright
driveway
red.
back again. Yep. Might change that for a different color. I'm just putting that in. Admittedly, this car has a bumper at the front, which is going to make going over this curb quite difficult. But, it was just a nice little touch of curvy walls to make the thing feel better. And that happened because we were playing around in Mag Racer. So just playing around in the other project has that massive
Yeah.
change on what we can do.
Fantastic. So, have you guys got any questions? I know I've gone through a lot. I kind of had a mini monologue there. If you've got actually have any questions, this is the best time to get hold of us because you have 100% of our attention.
Yes, but it could be used as a polygon for background. Absolutely. And the nice thing about using a path and a CSG polygon is it can all be edited in at runtime in code. However, one thing I did learn in Mag Racer is the more polygons, CSG polygons you have set to a path, the slower the update's going to be. Whenever we want to make a change in a track in Mag Racer, I remove the path, the CSG polygons completely, update the path, and then bring them back in as a scene.
Yes.
Because otherwise, you move a point, you'll wait 30 seconds, and then you see a change.
Yeah, that sort of thing's prevalent in Blender as well. If you often find a classic example would be the subdivision surface modifier, where if you've got too many polygons in your scene, it's really sluggish. But you can have your preview, your viewport set to a lower amount than your final render. Because when you're rendering, you don't care about viewport performance. When you're editing and you're trying to change things, like you with the track over in Mag Racer, turning things off or disabling them so you can make those tweaks, it's just a workflow improvement overall.
Good question from Gad.
I find whenever I use the knife tool in Blender, yes, the knife tool is a highly destructive tool. It cuts through objects, if you hadn't guessed by the name. What other things you need to be careful for when carving out pieces of a mesh? So one of the things the knife tool does allow is you can cut through everything that object is in. So make sure you've got that toggled off if you don't want to slice through the entire object. I'm always in two minds about this quad workflow. As mentioned, it's a workflow. It's not a you must do. However, it is critical for certain things. So occasionally you can end up with very people being very what's the right word,
Banana.
draconian in their beliefs.
I was close.
Yeah, so you will get people who are like, it must be a quad topology, you cannot have any other sided polygons in there, or you must have no intersecting geometry, or and you end up with these things where people end up very hardlined without taking a step back and trying to understand what the end goal is. You're quite right. The knife tool, you can have brilliant topology and wreck it in an instance using the knife tool. However, you can do things like align it. So I think the C key, when you're using it, gives it a straight line. As in locks it to 90 degrees up and down. So if you can combine that with viewing your object from particular angles, so either the front, the side, or the top, you can have a lot more fine control over the knife tool. When it comes to carving out pieces of your mesh, what I would advise is you go through an iterative process where you start with something that is messy, where using the knife tool on it isn't something you need to worry about. And then afterwards, once you've actually got the shape that you desire, then go in and, if you need to, improve the topology so it looks good. If it's necessary. That's the main thing.
It's kind of like using Boolean transformations in the sense that it can be very useful. It's very destructive. And if you're not careful, you'd end up with a bunch of broken normals and vertices and faces that you don't even notice until it's too late. I remember playing around with Blender a few months back and just playing with the Booleans. And then when I went to render the object, everything was messed up. And it was actually easier to remove the object completely and start from scratch.
Yeah, so shading is a big one that you don't always see in the viewport shading. So I'll just switch over to Blender. Let me launch it.
Launch it or hop on over?
Let's hop on over. into Blender. Hey, so we're over in Blender 2.92. Let's add a monkey into the scene. So we've got a lovely monkey here. She's very faceted. You can see that by just how flat the actual model is. Low poly, great. So when we turn on shading, either the viewport shading to material preview, or we go all the way over into rendered mode, you can end up with artifacting occurring if you start cutting through your model or doing any sort of Boolean operation on it. And it can be very difficult to try and fix it after the matter, because you end up actually having to do quite a bit of repair work. And it's usually down to the fact that if you're chopping through a model, let's go to something really simple like a plane. If you're chopping through this model with a cylinder, the outside edge only has 4 vertices on it. So when we cut it with a cylinder down the middle, I'm going to apply my transforms, always really important. And we want to cut through that. I'm not sure you can do this with a plane, to be honest, but I'm going to give it a go live so I can show my ignorance. And cylinder. We don't want intersect, is it? Have I applied it to the wrong object? Probably.
I don't know. Your camera is 30 seconds behind your voice for me.
Yay. Okay, so you can't cut into that object. Let's do a cube. And now apply it. Cylinder, bring that back, bring it up. There we go. So if we go ahead, grab our cube, use a Boolean on it, and say that we want to use the cylinder as a cut, and then hide the cylinder so we can see it. Excellent. So this looks pretty good so far, and it's a lovely flat surface. Blender can handle that. But when you start doing other things like beveling edges to make it look neat and more realistic, because nothing has flat edges, watch this be absolutely perfect at this point in time and not show horrible artifacting. Yes, here we go. Some horrible artifacting going around here. It doesn't matter if we shade smooth. This thing will now look like a pile of doo-doo because...
I'm a bit worried if that's what your piles of doo-doo look like. Have you considered seeing a doctor?
Let's put the shading on there and turn that off again. You see, we've still got all of this rough shading that's happening here. And that's because we are trying to cut a hole and we don't have enough geometry for Blender to work out what should be going on. A very simple fix to this, a bit of a naive one, is to just add more geometry. So if we go to our original cube here, and add something like a subdivision surface modifier in, and bring it
at 100 levels.
At 100 levels, I don't think I'm going to go that high. Set it to simple, and I'm going to go to 7 levels. It will freeze Blender. Perhaps I should have done less. Perhaps I should have done less. Oh no. Yeah. There we go. 7 levels. And then come out of edit mode. And then in a few moments' time, we should have something that looks relatively smooth. And there we go. No, it doesn't. It looks absolutely horrible. What have I done? I've broken Blender. The end. I'm going back. I'm quitting
that
Blender.
Was what I meant about, it's a bit like YouTube Millions.
There you go.
Simple, and then what is it?
Yeah. So there is a workflow you can use anyway, where if you have a circle in the middle that has, let's say, 32 sides. The best workflow to make sure that you can subdivide it and other things actually work properly is to make sure that your cube or your face that's surrounding it also has 32 edges. Now that sounds weird. How can you have a cube with 32 edges? Well, most of those edges are in line with one another. There's 8 along one edge, 8 along another, 8 along another. And then when you cut into the model, it has more geometry to handle. Boolean workflow is an interesting one. I love it. It's brilliant for mocking up hard surface sci-fi scenes. It's not so great when it comes to preserving topology. It can be incredibly destructive.
Yeah, and Breaking Blender is the hot new TV show starring Michael.
Yes, Breaking Blender. That's got a good ring to it. Hello, everybody. In this video, we're going to really screw up Blender.
Blenders. Michael Bridges has broken Blenders.
Nice.
I wrote your theme song.
Almost every time I try and do something live in Blender, something goes wrong. And you guys wonder why I've not done a live stream yet. This is where everybody's like, no, do a live stream. We want to laugh at you not use Blender properly.
The one that's hard for me is coding while streaming because it's very hard for me to talk while I code. Like when I'm
Yes,
recording videos, I've already done it and I've got the other code up here on the other monitor.
totally.
And even then, I'll make a ton of mistakes because I'll be talking or I'll forget the word. I'm like, what's that word? What? No, that's not. What have I done?
Yeah, there's a kind of a half because when you're streaming, you can be completely literal and have it like an online class, warts and all. However, you're also, or in my mind anyway, I'm also there to entertain. Michael, entertain them. And so off we go. And of course, if you're trying to focus on a particular project, it can be very challenging if students are basically asking questions as you go along. And me being me, I'll probably just go ahead and answer them, load up Blender, crash it, do loads of things like that, and you never get the thing you set out to do done.
Yeah.
Which is always fun. Right, I am going to copy and paste the lyrics because I think there could be
There's something to that.
nice.
That's when go blenders will do your head in.
Well, this is being recorded. Let's see if I can sample that.
Um, any other questions, concerns, thoughts, interpretive jingles or dances? Interpretive dances or jingles?
Oh, whilst people are thinking of their questions, typing them in, ready for us to answer, I got an email the other day. You know, Reason, the digital audio workstation. Reason. It's one that I've played with a lot, and I really love the way that you can basically wire anything up into anything. It's
I
very,
really want to play with Reason. It looks like an amazing piece of software.
it's a
I've
ton
been
of
watching
fun.
people's examination of it. If you don't know Tantacruel, he's someone with a PhD in composition
Yeah.
who also does UX design. So he's got a really cool take on these programs.
So one of the great things about Reason is you have a load of rack instruments. So in sort of like a music studio, you typically have a rack that you put instruments into, quite literally digital instruments, or effects like reverb and delay. They can be modules that you would then link together using literal cables. You would plug one output into an input, and in the old analog days, it's just voltage essentially, so you could use anything to control anything else. And what Reason enables you to do is hit tab, I think it is. It's been a while since I've used it, and flip round to the back of the rack and actually play with all of these settings, which is absolutely phenomenal. And Reason have just released a subscription model. Now, I'm not a big fan of subscription models, but when they come with a month free, and I'm not sure what the monthly rate is, but also they come with sample packs. And again, I've not tried any of these sample packs, but when it comes with all of this extra stuff, and if it was like £10 a month, that's quite
Well, I
reasonable.
know that Reason, the new version of Reason, comes in with some really good packs and modules built
It
in.
does, yeah. And so I'm very tempted to play with that. Not at the moment though. I've got a Blender course to record, but I am interested in experiencing some other doors again because last time I touched Reason was Reason 6, and I think they're on version 12 now. So it's been quite a few years since I've used the software, and I believe just like Fruity Loops, which is another one of my favorite music programs, they've got a perpetual license. So if you buy the full program, you also get all the updates, which
Very
I
nice.
think is a wonderful way. It can be a bit of a shoot yourself in the foot, but if they're offering other things like music packs and things like that plug in, I think that might be a
We have a
door
question from
open.
Gaming, which has got some less than helpful responses. How do we get a Blender shirt?
You get this from the Blender website. Blender.org/merch. I don't know. Let me go and find where that
Where do you
is.
get this? By going to GodoCon, which you can't do this year because it's one, it's over, and two, it was virtual. But I got it at GodoCon last year.
Yeah, so here we go. If you go to store.blender.org, and you can go from there.
Yep.
I mean, I bought this in a couple of mugs a few months back. Jan and I have talked about Canopy Games merch several
We
times, So if you've ever had the concept or heard the concept of rubber ducking when it's coding, where you talk to your virtual rubber duck as if you've got a colleague next to you, and you explain the problem you're having, and by the process of explaining, you often your brain goes, "Ah, look, you forgot the semicolon," or "Ah, look, you've indented it wrong." You often come up with a solution. However, the toucan being our mascot, we have been looking around for rubber toucans, essentially, which we think would be pretty awesome to have.
It would be. It's a little hard to get. We basically have to get them specially made and shipped over in bulk. But yeah, I think a rubber toucan, although it'd actually be vinyl.
Yeah, but printing. I wonder whether you can get an FDM printer that prints out in a latex or a rubber rather than a typical hard plastic. That oh dear,
I mean, I want one of those laser engravers.
they would be pretty epic. We need just
I have no, I don't have the room, the time, the expertise, or the money for one. But apart from all of
all of
those,
those actually good reasons. Oh well, I've been working downstairs in the garage trying to get things set up as I was mentioning at the beginning of the stream, and I've found my 3D printer. It's one of those lithography ones, so it can produce incredibly good detail of objects. Now you didn't see it on the list there. However, I do want to do a short section of the course specifically focused on 3D printing, but it's always a tough one because it's kind of like game assets. The moment that it leaves Blender, now you've got all of these game engines to kind of support on top of it. Export settings for Unity is different from export settings for Blender, is different to export settings for Unreal, for Lumberyard, etc., etc. And the same with 3D printing. Once you've exported it, you export it as an STL file. Fine, you've met all the requirements. But then you go into some slicing software, which most people just use the slicing software that comes with their printer. And if it's no good, you will end up with crappy prints. It's as simple as that. But that's where all the fine control, where it gets converted so your printer understands it. And so I need to work out a way, perhaps a standardized slicing tool that can be used in order to make sure that the course is, or the 3D printing section of it is succinct and actually complete. Because just leaving it as and now your prints and now your model's ready, I could leave it like that. But as long as I set the expectation at the beginning that we'll get them ready to print, the rest is on you.
I had this brilliant idea that I was going to take my Spotify playlist, which is now something like 18 hours long, and I was going to see if I could convert some of it to MP3 so that when my internet went down again, I could listen to them on there, right? I'm like, I don't know if that's actually ethically okay or not. Is there a program that'll do it? There is. It has a free trial. I'm going to see if it's physically possible. And the instructions went like this: fire up the program, log in with your account, use the program, enjoy your music. It's like, it doesn't work. You just use the program. Yes, but there's a bunch of settings and you haven't talked me through them and I can't get them to work. So it's like, well, it's a month free trial. Cancel at any time. Where's the cancel button?
Oh, you need to email us on a different email than anyone we've disclosed.
I found the support thing and I opened a support ticket saying, I can't find your cancel button. Do you need help with your product? Yes, I'm trying to cancel it. Are you aware of? Yes, I'm aware of all of those things. Your product doesn't work. Your instructions are bad. I want to cancel it like you said I could.
Yeah.
And they canceled it for me.
I have, BitGaming, I have Googled rubber toucan. I'm afraid to say it was perfectly safe. Seriously, I'm not trolling. It was fine.
No, I did it while we were talking.
So I raised an eyebrow. I was like, I'll try this. I'll try this.
I did see a very cute teething toy.
Yeah, as Daz says there, the STL is as far as Blender goes. So I think we can talk about it. Perhaps have a little like bonus section about getting models ready. But then when it comes to your printer, you're on your own. One of the most annoying things about a 3D printer is you can have absolutely everything set up correctly and your print still fail. And it can be annoying because printing takes a while to do. You look like you're about to do something cheeky, so I will let
I
you.
sent you a message on Discord.
I don't know how to get to that.
Well, I could put it in YouTube, but
No,
it's 2K. I could put
yes.
it in. Did you see it?
I love that. That's brilliant.
Isn't it cute?
It's Diddy. Is it an inflatable one? Or is it a
No,
plushy
it's a
one?
teething toy.
A teething toy. Finally.
Because clearly you want your infant chewing on toucans.
Yes. Nature is good for you. Yep, 6 hours for the latest print. That's the other thing. When something goes wrong and it goes wrong at the end of a 6 hour print, it's I think in some ways because it's physical, it's more painful than when you hit render on a scene and you know the scene's going to take ages and you didn't remove the placeholder cube, so you've got a beautiful scene and this cube is on top of your model because you forgot to hide it from the render.
Yep. All right, shall we start doing the wrap up?
Yes. I've got some paper somewhere. Present. So yeah, if we've been going quite a while actually, an hour and 15 so far. So yes, any final questions before we wrap up for the evening and go off into the words escape me? Yes, brilliant. Yeah, any other questions you guys have, be happy to help. Otherwise, we are here pretty much every week on
Heartache to
7.
heartache stand. No
Oh.
promises, no demands. Love is it? That's Belinda Carlisle, isn't it? It's not us.
Close enough. Yeah, we're here every 7 p.m. GMT. It will change when 7 p.m. becomes 8 p.m. that was before when the clocks go forward in a bit. So there will be.
That's an amazing sentence.
I've been practicing. Yeah, we'll make sure that there's a bit more forewarning for these events. And did you know that if you typed in 7 p.m. GMT into Google, it tells the time where you are?
Know that. Melican asked if we can recap the first hour. Blender, Canopy Cars, GTA Online, GTA Online, random waffling, Blender, Canopy Cars, Booleans.
I broke Blender live.
T-shirt.
Yes, it was Jan's fault. He told me to type in a very large subsurface number. Blender did not like that at all, but I managed to prove my point with rendering artifacts just in an unintended way. Nice. Okay, everybody. Thank you, Blender and GTA 5. Nice.
Blender and GTA 5. I wonder if you could blenderize GTA 5. No,
No.
not doing it.
In this video, we're going to make the whole world of GTA. No, stop. Be a very long video. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, everybody.
We shall
be
see
safe,
you again.
be happy, and be merry. My sign off isn't working.
Bye.